Good day and welcome to SOUQ Business Landscape, where we decode the forces shaping business, policy, and economic life across Nigeria and beyond. I am Oyinpreye Krumale. Today's edition will navigate three major developments, stirring conversations in boardrooms, markets, and households alike. Welcome to the SOUQ Business Landscape. I'm not doing this by myself. I have two gentlemen here on my side. Hello.
Good afternoon, everyone watching. Moyosore Adebiyi here. Glad to be here with you, Priya.
Glad to be here, Moya.
Yeah.
And good afternoon. I am Olumide Sokoya.
Well, gentlemen, okay, we are aware of what we are going to be talking about. However, let me just whet the appetite of our viewers and, of course, to launch us into the deep of what will be happening as a way of introduction. First, we break down implications of Nigeria's recently passed tax reform bills, what they mean for businesses, consumers, and government revenue in a time of economic recalibration. And next, we shift gears to an unlikely but essentially economic staple, salt. Beyond the taste, we explore its nutritional relevance, industrial value, and why Nigerians could do more to unlock its full economic potential. And finally, we turn our lenses to the international mobility as the United Kingdom tightened visa approvals for Nigerians. Not just Nigerians alone, but we are in the mix. What's driving the policy shift, and how could it affect education, trade, and diaspora remittances? These are what we'll be looking at today. So I know you know of these three stories,
Yes,
but as a way of just personal, what just be your take for them generally when you're just giving an overview?
I would say that for the tax reforms, I was rather impressed and happy to some certain extent, because taxing the poor does not breed development for any nation. So the idea that we're maintaining the current 7.5 VAT tax, yeah, I think that's good. Increasing it to 10% or 15% was going to be really, is going to bear down so much on the people, because there's a lot of economic problems that we're going through, so to speak, right now. For the UK visa restriction,
I don't know why you're laughing.
First of all, I don't like throwing racism around, carelessly, but there is some prejudice. And one of the reasons why I say that is because on that particular issue, there still isn't much clarity. Is this about the asylum, people overstaying, or is it just about the number of people who are migrating? So we'll wait for the white paper, which is coming later in May. But based on the little things that I'm seeing, I do have a few bones to pick on that particular subject. The salt one is also incredibly funny, because I don't know why people who have no expertise in a given field are talking about it. So we'll see how the conversation pans out.
Olumide.
All right, just like you rightly said, talking about the two bills, it's quite good. The fact that it proposes to replace the FIRS, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, with the National Nigerian Revenue Service. We hope that it would ease the payment of tax, remove bottlenecks and all that. And just like you rightly said, it's not just about taxing the poor and all that. So it's a good bill. We'll look at the advantages and disadvantages of it. Secondly, regarding the salt issue, it's quite funny how, a particular person said something and people, and it talks about how sometimes we need to watch what we say, because sometimes you can say something that will affect. But I like how the authorities are now into this, and, it's something we should have been doing, regulating all these foods.
Not until one
person said something carelessly, and now all of a sudden we're now realizing that too much of salt is not good. I mean, if you go to your doctor will tell you.
This is basic information.
It's a basic information that is just out there, And for the strict visa, well, I think, just like you said, I like to wait for the white paper, but it's obvious. We all know who would lose at the end of the day. It's not really Nigerians. It's them, because we are actually helping the economy. But we'll go into that.
Wow, Nigeria is so big. It's helping the economy of the UK. We'll find out about that. But you know what? Let's jump into the business of the day. This is your business, your economy, and this is SOUQ Business Landscape. Let's get started. The Nigerian Senate has passed 2 of the 4 major tax reform bills sent by President Bola Tinubu, signaling progress in his administration plan to overhaul the country's tax system. The Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Bill and the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill were passed on Wednesday after a close-by-close review and third reading during plenary. The bills aim to restructure tax administration and improve transparency and coordination in revenue collection across the country. Senate President Godswill Akpabio raised the development, stating that the reforms would enhance government and strengthen the federal government's capacity to collect and distribute revenue effectively. The Senate also rejected proposals to raise VAT from 7.5% to 10% and to phase out funding for key development agencies, citing concerns about economic impact to ensure sustainable funding for agencies like funding the NITDA, that's the National Information Technology Development Agency, and NASENI. The Senate introduced a new 4% development levy. According to the bill, 50% of the levy will go to TED Fund, while the remaining 50% will be shared among the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NITDA, NASENI, the National Cybersecurity Fund, and the Defense Security Fund. The company income tax rate remains at 30%. Yeah. Okay, so we have overflogged this issue about tax to the extent that if you ask any man on the street, they'll be telling you, look, let them just pass and take action.
Yeah.
And one part that I see the Senate was tackling is this issue about NASENI, the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, and they do not want NITDA, the National Information Technology Development Agency, to also go into extinction because, and it came from what you said. If the government is going to increase tax, the VAT, value-added tax, from 7.5% to 2026, it will be moved to 10%.
Yeah.
And from 2026 to 2027, it will also move another fraction higher. And before we got to 2030, it would have got to 15%.
Yes.
If we continue that speed, NITDA, TED Fund, a chunk of this VAT is being used to sponsor these agencies. And by the time we get there, their sponsorship or the fund that will be deducting from tax, from VAT, to them would have gone into extinction.
Yeah.
So, but like you said, are we going to be taxing the poor?
Yeah, it's not sustainable. You know, and one of the things I like about the way they broke this down is I can see how it can be sustainable. You know, I'm looking at it here now, and it's supposed to say, it says here that by 2030, even the 4% that goes, I believe, goes to the development levy would be dropped to 2%.
Yes.
Right? And at the end of the day, while it might be expensive, you know, for us, the consumers on our part, to pay all that money, the fraction of the way to affect the bottom line of companies would be a lot less. They can share that loss in the sense, in the cost, the margin on their product and whatnot. So it doesn't affect their bottom line so much when you look at the numbers, as much as it will affect me and you, the customers, the consumers on the streets. So it does make sense, and I think it's a brilliant approach. You know, I really am the kind of guy who supports the government and the Senate and whatever they do. Okay. But I know that this is better for all of us, so to speak. Yeah.
Okay. So, one of the reasons I'm going to come back to what Moyo said about taxing. Probably I'm going to take the other side of it, so that we look at the issue very, very clearly. Because sometimes when they set up issues about taxing the poor is part of society.
Yes.
So if they, make their own contributions to upholding the way society functions, because taxation is used to fix infrastructure, is used to provide other social and public facilities that both the rich and the poor will use in society, and the absence of it will leave those social amenities, in a decadent format, and we do not want that. True. So what's your perspective about this reform bill and the two bills that have been passed recently and their impact?
Well, I think one of the benefits is the centralized tax administration, consolidating all these tax together. And because if you look at how many tax we pay, it's too much. We're paying this for cybersecurity, VAT, this levy. It's too much. But I believe this new bill now, it brings everything together, which is very good, so that we know that this is the amount. But one thing I am not sure of is how will it thrive? With the new local government autonomy and all that, how would they be able to synchronize? Would they be infringing on each other's boundaries and all that? It's something that they really need to look into. So I don't know how they would fix that, but hopefully. But like he said, it benefits low-income earners because from what I have here, it's going to be exempting about individuals earning less than 800,000, which is quite good because... I'm not part of the people who believe that our president is a tax collector. Some people are of that theory that he likes to just tax. So this bill maybe prove the naysayers
otherwise. But if the president, one of the reasons why people see Mr. President as one who can leverage more on taxation is because of his first administration, during his administration rather as Lagos State Governor. He was able to grow the income base, the IGR of Lagos, from a paltry sum running to some few billions.
But that was based on the fact that the current president that time, they were in a scuffle and he stopped revenue going to Lagos. Now imagine if revenue was flowing, would he have done that?
Well, I mean, he is an accountant.
He's an accountant.
So it's right up his alley.
Money.
Yes, but it was because Obasanjo back then stopped that.
But I don't think we could say for a fact that even if they were on good terms and they didn't have all these little issues back then, that he wouldn't have done the same. I don't think he would probably still have made the measures to ensure that Lagos had some financial autonomy on their own. We can't say for a fact that he wasn't going to do that. But again, as we've said here, at the end of the day, we all know that this is Tinubu's bill. He proposed this bill, and kudos to him for this one. That's all I'll say.
Yes. But I want to go back to what he said. I don't think Mr. President then, as the governor of Lagos State, actually did that because he felt the president then, Olusegun Obasanjo, removed his allocation to local governments and said, okay, if you do that, I'm going to, go ahead and source for fund by taxing Lagosians. Even if he did that after that removal or that rejection came from the president, well, it paid off. And if that was the case, probably it would have stopped or it would have gone down with the intensity with the way it was taxing Lagosians. It would have abated. But it didn't. And people attributed it to him that he had a master plan. And that was one of it. And if you look at Lagos very well, it doesn't just go by the name Center of Excellence for nothing.
Yeah.
There are businesses in this place.
That's something I also wanted to say. It's not like it was outrageous in the way you went about collecting the taxes.
Course.
One of the major problems we have when it comes to tax is actually collecting these taxes and being able to track the people who are owing and whatnot.
Yes.
So he put in the framework to be able to actually collect these taxes that needed to be collected. So it's not as if he just started imposing ungodly levies all over the place. Exactly.
No, he didn't. He didn't do that, which is a good thing. But now let's just is bringing that vibe, for lack of a better word, to the federal level. But one aspect, which is one benefit that we enjoy or that Nigerians will enjoy, is that it will assist low-income businesses.
Yes, that's true.
Businesses, there's this threshold, which I think in the wisdom of the president and Mr. Taiwo Oyedele and those who crafted that bill, are very, very considerate, and their economic policy towards driving Nigerians to businesses and empowering them to become self-reliant is obviously stated in that tax reform bill. And the reason why I said this is because businesses who do turnovers of 200 and, okay, is it 200? No, 25 million naira yearly are exempted. Yes. So if they are exempted, do you know how much it takes to do 25 million naira turnover for a year?
How many companies
How many companies do that for a year?
For a year.
Apart from the banks that have been declaring billions of... so if companies that, let's just say your company does 18 million naira a year, you are exempted from that level of taxation. So what? It gives you the financial capacity to employ more manpower and to equally expand as well. So on that particular aspect, I would see that as innovative and putting Nigerian local business, most especially the SMEs, in a position where they will be able to compete.
Yes.
So that in itself is a good thing. But one thing I also want to scowl at this administration is that people who earn 800,000 naira annually are exempted from the tax. Please. I see that as how it's okay. Let me not go there. But I see 800,000 naira. How many people, if you were to divide 800,000 naira by 12, how much do people going to earn a year? A month.
That's probably around like 72,000.
72,000, which is barely the minimum wage.
Barely.
So why can't you just move it upward to people who earn
probably
3 million naira a year?
3
million naira a year, because I don't even think people who earn 3 million naira a year falls into the middle class.
Especially when you think about the whole inflation situation right now.
Okay.
I think baby steps.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Okay.
For now, I think baby steps. Because it could have been, and I don't want to talk like someone who has Stockholm syndrome, but it could have been so much worse. But you do make a great point with that. But again, these are things that we have to ensure that we continue to call for things like that. There is a human angle to every policy that is made.
Yes.
Every policy, you have to look at the average man on the street, even the middle class. Because even the middle class right now, they are struggling. It's not exactly easy to be middle class in Nigeria right now. It's not.
No, it's not.
So you have to take all those things in consideration. One of my major problems I would always say is that there seems to be a little detachment from reality when it comes to how these policies are crafted sometimes. But this one, I'd say, is probably one of the best I've seen so far in recent years. Yeah.
Olumide.
Well, just like you rightly said, even though the 800,000...
it's quite small. It's very, very small.
It's very small, but it benefits some people, for a fact.
If we expand it, because when we look at inflation, for 2024 alone, I cannot begin to calculate how many times transport fare run up. Now, this is Lagos, where we are beginning to look at, okay, the middle class, those who belong to the grassroots, the ebb of society, and those who are the upper echelon of society, and we look at transportation, and fuel is not as expensive as the way you could be buying fuel or fueling your car in Jigawa State, because Lagos is relatively cheap.
Yeah.
Okay, so in that case, let's go on break just for a moment. When we return, before we delve into the next topic, we might still look at some gray areas of the recent bills rather in the tax reform bills that have been, given a nod, and the ones that are yet to come, which is going to be taking place later today. When we return, SOUQ Business Landscape continues to stay with us. Welcome back. Many thanks for joining us on the program. It's still SOUQ Business Landscape, and we are looking at the tax reform bills. Recently, the House of Representatives, the National Assembly, has passed 2 of the tax reform bills, and the pending 2 more bills, because we have 4 of them that made up the whole tax reform bills, will be passed later today during plenary by the National House of Assembly. Now, let's move on to other aspects of the conversation, still on tax reform bill. And first of all, when the tax reform bill surfaced, one of the critical information or the areas that were considered is about the sharing formula.
Exactly, yeah.
And then we were having the bickering among members in the House of Representatives and in the Senate concerning the sharing formula. and the headquarters of offices are in Lagos, Nigeria, but most of the people that consume this product are dwelling somewhere in Kano State. So how are we going to share the proceeds? Are we going to have 30% shared based on population? Are we going to have 50% shared based on the location of the headquarters? That are we going to have 20 or 30% shared based on? And this conversation, became a thing of the North-South dichotomy, and it became politicized. So let me get your perspective in this.
Well, I would say, those are details that obviously, we are going to have to amend as we go by. Those little details just to fine-tune this. But you look at the revenue sharing adjustment so far, I think it's huge. For the states, it used to be 15%, now it's 55%. That's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot of. You were about to say something?
No, go on.
Yeah, that's a lot. A lot of growth, and it gives the state more capacity. To cater to the local needs of the people in the state. Yes. For the federal government, it dropped from 15% to 10%. Yes. Local government remains unchanged. But then again, I think it's still a win. As you rightly said, we will have to fine-tune this as we go, and that's why the Senate and the House of Reps are going to sit down and they have to do the work that we hired them, so to speak, via elections to do. They better do the work. But this is a step in the right direction. We talk a lot about fiscal federalism. This helps us achieve that.
Okay,
true and true.
Talking about taxation, I will like to commend some states, and the reason why I'm talking about commending that, and Lagos is on the front burner of those states because of its intentionality in making sure that it has a conducive environment for businesses to establish, to breed, and to be able to expand because they have the market. The market here, we're talking about the population, and most especially that conducive environment. The way Lagos generate, IGR, and the way companies, come to the eyebrow areas to buy properties, to set up offices. I cannot begin to talk about, the Eco-Atlantic or the Banana Islands of these days now, and how rapidly they sprung up almost out of nothing. It's because of the intentionality of this state in making itself the hub and indeed live up to its responsibility as a center of excellence when it comes to business, economy, and development. So other states should emulate, because in this tax, I don't want to talk about some other areas so that the NBC do not come asking questions. But there are some products that in the southern part of the country,
in the northern,
you can freely gulp and consume. But you can't do that in the northern part of the country. However, those products, that's a very hefty amount that they churn out and they generate to the coffers of the government by way of value-added tax. Now, why should it be shared equally? Or why should we come close in sharing that proceeds if you had made laws that bar those products from being consumed in your territory?
I want to approach this
in a very delicate way.
It's a very delicate situation, because if you look at some of these companies, let's take for instance alcohol and that, they churn out a whole lot. And we know in some parts of Nigeria it's prohibited. In fact, it's different factories and lounge and all that where they sell this alcohol has been destroyed.
Banned.
Products burnt. And when the proceeds goes to the federal government, it's distributed. There's no discrimination. They don't say, okay, it wasn't produced here, it wasn't sold here. It's so if you remember when former governor of River State, Wike, took the federal government to court, talking about how he feels that states to generate and retain their own. I'm sure he must have thought of certain things like that how can we be generating so much and another state that is not generating, like giving him, it feels somehow. But, well, the federal government, this is something they should look at. I don't know how they can fine-tune this revenue sharing formula and all that, so that other states need to benefit more than other states. Lagos, the oil-rich states, and the rest of them, because they are generating a whole lot. So they need to get a chunk of that.
Okay, so in a way to incentivize states that are taking it up on their shoulders to be able to lay up policy frameworks for their states and their territory to be able to bring out businesses to tap into some of those uncharted waters. Okay, for instance, before Fashola came to power, or I remember when he immediately got to power, there were some of the roads, most especially in Surulere area, that Western Avenue, that road was a no-go area. It was moving from Maryland to Costain to down to Marine Beach. It was quite, but it just came and expanded the road. By that alone, we saw free flow of traffic. Not only that, the wharf, the port in Apapa, there was a time that the trailer, queue all the way from there down straight to Alaka to Costain.
It was a nightmare.
I will add to that. The entire of that Alaka corridor,
yes.
If you look at it now, there are so many businesses that were not there during that time.
Why did they come there?
Because the roads are more accessible.
Road. In Ajegunle, the roads were very bad. Fashola came, just fixed the road, and the price of real estate equally run up.
It went up, yeah.
Just little initiative. So is it rocket science?
You see, this is why I'm even happy that no state governor now can say they don't have enough resources to do things like that. Do you understand? With policies like this new VAT, the increase from 15% to 55%, they can't say they don't have enough resources to do things. And that's why we need to hold our governors by the jugular now, because they can't be giving excuses and we're not going to take it from them. Right? So these are the little things. It's not rocket science. Just that road that he did. Look at the ripple effects of that. So if we're going to talk about the people in the north, and okay, again, we have a justification to say they shouldn't probably take as much of a percentage as other states because there are some products that that are VATed that they don't consume over there. But if you look at it holistically, the VAT itself, it's going into education, it's going to so many other things that are of national importance, right? So if we look at it more holistically, we just have to hold the governors there by the jugular, support agriculture, support infrastructure. The ripple effects, we will feel it over here ourselves. The things that we don't have here that they have, we'll also earn from that.
You mentioned it, agriculture.
Yes, they have agriculture, so why not?
Tons of trailers.
We just have to be patient for them, to get it and hold their governors accountable. That's just it.
Okay. So now we're moving away from issues on the national tax reforms. We'll move on to something that's somewhat sensitive and require expert knowledge in this. The Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare has issued a public advisory cautioning against misinformation on salt consumption, urging collaborations from key stakeholders in the food and beverage sector to support a new national health initiative. In a statement released on Wednesday and signed by the Deputy Director of Information and Public Relations, Alaba Balogun, the ministry said it is ramming up efforts to implement a national sodium reduction strategy, a move with far-reaching implications for manufacturers, restaurants, and informal food vendors across the country. The ministry stressed that while sodium is essential to human health, excessive intake prevalent among Nigerians has been linked to increased risk of hypertension, stroke, and kidney disease. According to the World Health Organization guidelines, a daily salt intake should not exceed 5 grams. However, local research indicates that the average Nigerian consumer consumes more than double this amount. The new policy introduces national sodium targets across all food categories, aiming to reformulate processed foods and re-educate consumers and support industry innovation in healthier food production. I had been to restaurants. This is good, and I know this was coming because someone very prominent spoke and gave a different perspective about salt intake. And when someone very prominent speak about something that touches the lives of many people and has a very large following.
The nature of its prominence as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It will garner very large support. And the Ministry of Health and the Minister, Ali Party, coming out, or one of its government functionaries coming out to address that. It's key and it's very, very important. I've been to restaurants where after buying the food to eat, it's quite salty. Very salty. So I was thinking, okay, the National Agency for Food, Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, this falls within your jurisdiction.
It's within their
purview. Okay, so I was thinking, how NAFDAC, are they going to be responsible for it? Imagine you being a NAFDAC official and you were posted to these places. You just go have breakfast and say, well, the food tastes good. You go to another eatery and have lunch and okay, fine, I need you to make some corrections here and there. And for dinner, you go to another place, have the same food. So I'm wondering, how is NAFDAC going to regulate this among the eatery and the restaurant?
I mean, it is funny to me, but again, that's why they are NAFDAC, so they need to figure this out. This is their job. They have to go to these places, and they have to I think this is why also they have to educate them as well. Right? If people are having hypertension and dying of strokes, you get less customers. So let's try and walk through something here. So they have to come up with something by way of monitoring to ensure that this doesn't kill people and it doesn't harm people negatively. It's a holistic thing. It has to be about everybody, because it sounds funny, but this is a very important thing. I think they say you shouldn't take more than at least 5 grams, which is less than a teaspoon of salt. But you see a day, yes, as a human being. But you just see them open all this salt and just pour it into the food, and all they'll do they taste and they move on. Salty they don't enough. Care. They'll be like salty enough. But is it healthy enough? That's the real question. So there has to be some education about this. And I remember happy that the minister sort of tackled this early on as it came out, because not many of them are proactive. No shade to any of the ministers out there, but not many of them are proactive. So I applaud him for that. Now, everybody who works in the health industry, the National Medical Association, everybody needs to step forward. If your job is to ensure that the people are safe, when you see things like this as authorities in the industry, you have to step up. That's just it.
Okay, Olumide, talking about monitoring. So I'm trying to think of the kind of innovation that NAFDAC is going to put on to monitor this process, most especially from food vendors. Who monitor food vendors? I mean, do we have connoisseurs that taste their food on a daily basis? Or is there a specific time during the year or the week that we have the monitoring agencies or is NAFDAC just meant for products alone? Because NAFDAC is responsible for food and beverage, as long as it's coming in through your mouth.
It's a whole lot when you look at how NAFDAC or how will I put it? I'm trying to look for a better word. What is ahead of NAFDAC right now is a whole lot, because first of all, we have imported foodstuff, canned foods. How are you going to regulate that? These are foodstuffs that are brought from other countries. Are you going to now reach out to the manufacturers or to the government of those countries and say, okay, reduce the amount of salt? Then let's come into Nigeria. How are you? I know, yes, we can go after the big multinationals and manufacturers in Nigeria, but what about the canteens, the bukas, the local bukas we have here? Now, let's do a quick stuff here. You want to prepare soup. You boil the meat. You put salt. You fry it, or you might not fry it. When you're not preparing the soup or the stew, you still add salt. That's more than a teaspoon already, because for the meat alone, I'm sure what you will put, the quantity will be almost 5 grams, which is about a teaspoon. So it's not just NAFDAC, it's also we educating ourselves. Exactly. I remember days of Ebola when our mothers and fathers called us that we should come home and bathe ourselves with salt and water. And it's quite surprising that we've not learned from that, reckless statement and all that. But it's a whole lot for NAFDAC. Just like you rightly said, would there be inspectors, food inspectors that will be going from one booker to the other? Because these bookers are is where we should actually really concentrate on, not just the eateries and all that, and food processing, manufacturers and all that, the noodles, this and that, even pastries also. How are they going to, just like you say, someone going to be tasting. Now, for someone who's going to be tasting, it's a whole lot of risk for you to be having to be tasting a lot of salt.
But here's the thing, I think that's why it's also important. They have to have guidelines, you know,
Yes.
for things like this. You know, abroad, you know, there are people who go, the health inspection officers.
Yes, they go.
They go around. It's not exactly something that can be done. They go around. You can copy how they do it. You know, there's nothing new under the sun. Learn how these people do it and go out there, inspect these places. Even some of these restaurants are even very dirty. If we even leave salt aside.
Yes.
If we even leave the salt issue aside, you go, in fact, some are beautiful on the outside, then you get into their kitchen and you just see rats just running around. And I've been to many, I don't want to say the area so nobody comes at me from there, but I've been to many around, and you just sit down and then you just see a rat run around. If there were health inspection officers who they know can come at any time, every month, maybe they show up like 3 times a month every month, but you don't know the date. And you know, you won't see all of those things there. It's a business. They want to make money as well, so they will do what they need to do. And also the education part is actually very important, because there's nothing as important as people knowing that, you know, other than the fact that there's a discipline, you know, consequence to this, you know, it's just good for you. It's good for everybody. It's the right thing to do. You know, so that's just it. We need people. I mean, we have a lot of institutions, even consumer protection.
FCCPC.
Yeah, I personally don't see much of them, and I need to see a lot more of them.
They're doing quite well.
They can do.
I've seen.
They can do much better.
But they can do much better.
Especially when we talk about this importation stuff.
Yes.
These are things you shouldn't just be able to just import any product you just see. There should be, you know, some certain guidelines on what you can import and their content. If you look at products in Nigeria, I think there was a time there was this soft drink that they said is a certain ingredient is less in the UK because they don't allow.
Yes.
I can't remember.
Or something like that.
They don't allow excessive consumption of that because it's unhealthy. But then they tested it here in Nigeria and it was like double what was over there.
And we are importing it from the UK.
Yeah, no, I don't know. We're not importing. They have their breweries here. Yeah, they have their. But I'm just saying, they know that it's not healthy, but they are still doing it here. That means somebody's not doing their jobs.
Yes.
Okay, so the health implication can be looked at, and whilst I was going through that excerpt, it said that it's responsible for heart disease.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Stomach cancer.
For what?
Stomach cancer.
For stomach cancer.
Yeah, kidney problems.
And kidney problems.
Yeah.
And, you know, a nation is as healthy as its people.
Of course, yeah.
And if they deduce the fact that this is not healthy for Nigerians, then we must begin to look. Because sometimes we're talking about salt. There are other spices that we use that, you know, are salty in and of themselves. Something as natural as crayfish. There's salt in it. Because it's there. This is it a sweetener? But there's a way it tastes. And the normal cubes, the Maggi.
They all have salt in there.
Have salt in them.
So if you are going to use 5 grams of salt already, and we are going to use Maggi.
Add those ones.
And you add those. So normally we've exceeded.
You've exceeded it.
Normally.
I don't know if I can tell Lagosians. Sometimes I fry my eggs sometimes without salt. Because by the time you put it inside your bread, you don't even taste it that, you know, the salt is necessary. And I'm not joking. I'm being for real. So what I'm just saying is using it excess. The key to life generally is balance. So you have to know the quantity of everything that is balanced, you know, for that.
Yes.
So there's no need. You know, you have your sauces, you have your turmeric powder, we buy all this ginger powder that we have. We just pour everything. Most of them already have salt in it. Tone it down a bit. Just tone it down a bit, generally speaking.
Okay, great. So because the informal sector is, and that's where you were talking about the bookers and the roadside. You're going to the office in the morning. You were unable to prepare something for yourself when you were leaving the house. You just
beans and bread.
Yes, or probably even let's bring it down to the ground of the root of society, and let it be what Nigerians feel.
Yeah.
the malam at the roadside that does the bread and egg, or the suya seller at the roadside, that cuts those meat and roasted meats, the salt in it.
And
Sometimes you don't add though, but there are a few that add. How do we regulate? So are we going to this informal sector? Because regulating the informal sector is
huge.
It's a huge
It's a
task.
major issue. Yeah.
And it's very, very demanding. So I remember, and these are the responsibilities of the local government.
Exactly.
Because they are closer to the
grassroots.
people at the ebb of society. And all this, the NAFDAC should have an office in the local government. The FCCPC, they have offices at the local government, because if there was a time when Nigeria and Lagosians were practicing the environmental sanitation every last Saturday
Of the
month.
Yeah.
If you are not doing that, it's the local government officials that comes to knock at the
enforce.
door and to enforce that. So is there a way we can bring them out again in this, or is this that something that if the federal government is making a law from the Ministry of Health for it to be implemented, of course it comes down and trickles down to the state, the states, the ministries and the commissions of health in the state level. Then we will not go to the local government level too, which we implement this. So we should have a chain of implementation. Now, whilst businesses seem to be thriving, because sometimes you can look at it from the psychology of marketing and businesses too. It could be that some businesses will tell you if you reduce salt from this product that we are making huge sales from, people are going to stop patronizing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just it reminded me of a particular brand of noodles that they reduced their seasoning and people are already complaining. So imagine if they reduce.
And that seasoning has salt in it.
Yes, of course it does. So reducing it further might also reduce their sales.
But at the end of the day,
it's healthy.
At the end of the day, you buy what you see.
True.
So if we can ensure that it is uniform across board, and I think you said it all, really, that we have primary health centers now in local government.
Oh,
bring all these people out. Everybody should come out. Go and enforce this thing. If I go to this suya man and I notice that he has reduced, and I go to the next one and I notice that he has reduced, we will all be fine.
The suya man will be okay.
We will all be fine.
How is he going to measure?
They will show him. Call all of them to a town hall meeting. Give them a presentation. Let them see. In fact, let somebody even speak their language to them. It's not rocket science. We just need to do the footwork for this to happen. It's what it is.
I feel we should also educate Nigerians themselves. They need to actually know that too much salt, because I've seen where you offer someone food and he'll tell you, oh, there's no salt in this. There's salt. Can I have some? And it's sprinkled. So we need to really educate ourselves.
You're right.
Do you understand? Because if you go enforcing suya man that, oh, don't put too much there, and someone else comes and says, don't mind it, put suya for oil, he takes the suya home, puts his own spice.
And then that's his personal business.
That's what I'm saying.
If he does that, that's his fault.
Yes, but we need to educate ourselves.
We can do
Because
that.
even when you educate the suya man or those who sell food at the corner, you've been to some canteens. Okay. And you are served on the table. In Nigeria, you see a shaker, salt shaker there.
Yes.
Sometimes you even see fresh pepper shaker, powdery fresh pepper shaker on the left.
This is tough.
So
It's a whole lot.
This is tough.
So people, culture will play a significant role. And like the businesses that feels, okay, we have this product, and you know what? It's spicy. It's somewhat salty, but you know what? It sells. Reduce the quantity, and that product goes into extinction in the market. What are we going to do in cases like that? Well, the government is churning out the policy should devise means of making sure that this policy gets to the head of society, and people, the workforce, to implement this policy, are told to go out to do so. The United Kingdom is planning new immigration rules that may make it harder for Nigerians, Pakistanis, and Sri Lankans to get visas. The UK says many people from these countries overstay their visas and later apply for asylum. The move comes as more Nigerians continue to relocate abroad in search of better opportunities, a trend locally known as Jagba, according to the Times. The UK Home Office is preparing an immigration white paper to fix what it calls a broken immigration system. The plan will focus on people arriving on work or study visas who later seek asylum. UK officials said they are gathering more data to stop the abuse of the system and may change visa rules quickly when needed. Visa rejections for Nigerians have increased sharply in 2023. 1 in 8 application was denied, compared to 1 in 31 in 2022. This has led to a 63% drop in UK visas issued to Nigerians. Many are now exploring other countries like the United States, despite tighter visa rules. There as well. The full UK plan will be released later this May. And that is it for us. Now, I'm an advocate for Nigerians. We own the world. Please go out. Go to UK, go to US, whether Donald Trump is the president or not. go to Sri Lanka, go to... In fact, there's a saying among some well-traveled people that anywhere you go in this world, if a Nigerian is not dwelling there, check it. That place is not a good place to live.
You should leave. You should leave there.
That you should leave all of a sudden. I know it's a saying, but you know what? I think there's truth to it. But if we talk about immigration, don't you think Africans, and indeed Nigerians specifically in Europe, in UK, that we have made that quite a larger chunk of the income for that country?
Yes, and in many ways as well. And one of the things that these people do is not even just visa fees. They have a lot of hidden fees underneath as well. This same UK, for example, I know they increased their visa fees in 2023. In 2024, they did not, but they increased the health surcharge. There's a health surcharge fee by 66%.
66%.
And Nigerians still paid. And again, it's deeper because there's a desperation to leave Nigeria. And I think that it's until we get to the root of that, until we solve the problem, the reason why we just want to, because Japa means to escape.
Yes,
literally. It doesn't mean to travel.
It doesn't mean
you are running away from something.
I just think the BBC they did not give that the right perspective when they put it into the dictionary.
Yeah, people are trying to escape from some. What are they trying to escape from? It has turned into a whole business thing now. So they are okay. They know you spend the money. Come and study here, but they don't want you to stay. Because I will still say this, personally for me, while we wait for more information on this, I still think that these countries that were mentioned, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Nigeria, they're just low-hanging fruit.
Nigeria,
yes, exactly. Just send a message. Because they know that we're not going to, what are we going to do about it? What have we done about it every time they said something weird about us? It was still in 2016 that David Cameron was at a banquet and he saw the Nigerian president and said, ooh, the Nigerian leaders are here, fantastically corrupt. There is prejudice. I didn't want to say racism, but there is prejudice, whether I say that or not. So this is how they see us. There is no, the way we say here, they don't rate us at all. Until they can tell us, because again, I said this is a big issue. You don't just put names out there like that. Give me a list of 20 countries and let's know the people who overstayed their welcome and the amount of people who said they want asylum. Okay, you only give us Sri Lanka, over 10,000 people. You gave us, they gave us Pakistan, over 10,000 people. Sri Lanka and Nigeria, over 2,000 people after their stay, asked for asylum.
Over 2,000.
Yeah, just 2,000. After, how many people have gone there and all the money we've given them. But, that's I just don't want it to be like, they're targeting us because we're easy prey. That's the thing. And gone are the days when we had leaders who would fight, diplomats who were ready to go out there and sit at the table and have, hard discussions for national pride to defend their citizens. Gone are the days of that. Now everybody's just, I don't even know what everybody's doing these days, So that's my thing here. Okay.
Olumide.
Well, pardon me for this statement. I see this as one of the Kemi Badenoch effects.
Okay.
You understand what I mean? Yeah. But let's look at the impact of this stricter visa restriction to Nigeria. Higher education sector revenue loss. Just 2021 alone, Nigeria contributed 1.93 billion pounds.
Exactly.
1.93
billion pounds.
Yes.
To the UK economy.
Yes. alone. Now, the labor market. There will be shortages in critical sectors like healthcare, STEM, infotechnology, because Nigerians are the ones there. If you find yourself in UK, it's either you're a health worker, or caregiver, and all that. Those are the jobs that Nigerians are easily
readily available for foreigners.
Yes. And not to talk about the fact that, yes, you will be underpaid because, yes, you're not a citizen, so they'll give you whatever you want. We've seen cases whereby people have come out on social media to complain about their bosses underpaying them and they can't do anything because they are not legally recognized in that country. Then also visa fee revenue. Just from 2023 to 2024, Nigeria donated 40 billion naira. So now I wonder if all that money was coming into Nigeria. First of all, I don't understand the fact of having, now, Priya, if you want to travel now, you need nothing less than, I'm being modest, 20 million. If you want to relocate or further your studies.
You mean if I want to establish a business?
Not business. I'm talking about higher education or further education. You need 20 million naira. So I don't understand. And people are selling their houses, properties.
People are in debt over this.
For this. And just last year, the UK repatriated some students who were not able to complete their tuition fees. And they complained it was due to the foreign exchange and all that. So, but I don't understand why Nigerians are still doing this. But because we cannot blame them, they are looking for greener pastures. Yeah. But it would also affect the UK economy because Nigerians, we are solution-oriented. We would look for other alternatives. So definitely Nigerians will look for other countries outside of UK, still in Europe to,
go there. And from there, jet back into UK.
I know someone, what he did was, he applied for a school in UK, and before he paid part payment, and in UK he applied for another school in US, so that his visa will read United Kingdom, and from there move to
US. And will not be among those Donald Trump is trying to kick out.
So Nigerians are, let me put it, lack of better word, we are crafty in our ways of doing things.
No,
so we would always find a way.
No, I would not accept the word crafty.
Maybe ingenious, I'd say. More of ingenious.
I will use
ingenious.
That. Because if you use the word crafty, we will be going with their narrative.
Exactly.
And I don't want that. But the thing is, I remember, to be fair to the UK and to the United States, or let me just say to the UK at the moment as we speak, to be fair to them, there was a time, you mentioned David Cameron. This was not even David Cameron's, it was during Boris Johnson's administration where there was some form of restriction to immigration laws. No, according to the Foreign Secretary, they review it. They review it and they begin to see new ways to make sure that Nigerians are, it's as if the UK, the Nigerians must come there. Like you colonize this country, right? Yeah. You will have a lot of us there.
Yeah, of course.
So the thing is, they discussed Nigeria in their parliament. Whilst they were discussing immigration law and immigration and how they need to cut down on the number of people that are coming to the UK, and one of the things, the bone of contention at that point in time was that the population in the city are burgeoning and the social amenities are limited. So they felt, okay, if this is what is going to happen, we have to make sure that our immigration rules and laws are, become more stricter. But what did they say? They said, look, if we're going to do that, they started reeling out figures just the way you reeled out your figures.
Yes.
Coming from immigrants, and most especially from Nigerians. And they felt that, look, this is going to be a loss to the educational sector in the UK. They were discussing it in Parliament, and when they were done discussing it, I was analyzing the issue to myself. I'm like, okay, these people are resisting a policy from the executive arm of government because they felt their economy has gained before now.
Yes.
Because of immigration. And if you nullify that and you reduce the number of people that will be coming into the UK from Africa, and most especially from Nigeria at that point in time, it's going to reflect on their economy and it's going to reflect on their budget. And if you reflect on the budget, that means the budget going to the education sector is drastically going to reduce. That is, their policies are driven by data and is driven by the singular consideration that, look, our economy needs to move forward. So I was thinking, okay, so if bringing more people into the US and the UK is going to promote their economy, they don't mind. They open their doors. Please come in. And if you cannot pay, like you said, they repatriate you back to your country. What are we learning? Can't we, within the annals of comparative administration, can't we borrow that model? Do you have any idea how many Ghanaians we have in Nigeria? Do you have any idea? I'm not saying we should repatriate them. But
I hope not.
Do you have any idea how many foreigners, African foreigners, that get into Nigeria, that get into this country by just crossing the border from Benin Republic or from Cameroon or from other states that are contiguous to Nigeria, and there's nothing. We don't do anything about it. In fact, we want to even give them NIN. Yes, we even give them NIN, National Identification Number, though probably they should be able to tell if these are Nigerians or not, because the future, you might be telling a different story in the future. So looking at the UK, I'm not really going to blame the UK for taking this line. However, I'm an advocate for Nigerians to spread across the globe.
You know, the thing here with the, you know, I know we're all reeling out figures and stuff like that. I still think there's a sociological, you know, angle to this.
You're still sticking to that?
I'm sticking to my guns on this because, you know, again, of all the figures they reeled out, you know, they didn't talk about the amount of people who actually leave and don't overstay. They've not been able to produce figures for that since 2020. There has been no white paper on that because when they released it in 2020, people challenged that and they could not back up the figures. They couldn't ascertain the figures. So why should I believe this one that only God knows where they pulled it out from? Do you understand what I mean? So again, it's just a thing of I don't think this is more political because even the Prime Minister currently he ruled on the policy of fixing the broken immigration system. So they have to show workings for these things now. And that's why I say soft landing, you know, it's soft landing. This is just soft landing for them. So they picked the 3 countries that they know will not cause them any drama. They just picked it. It's easy. China and India, more people from China and India go to the UK yearly. You will not see them on this list. Just a few months ago, when the Prime Minister was telling Kemi Bademanok that you're talking incomprehensible nonsense. It was over the Britain-India trade deal. So these are people that they rate more than us. Do you understand what I mean? You know, it's low-hanging fruit. And until our leaders and our diplomats can carry themselves in a more respectable fashion, they will not respect us.
But the thing is there a case where Nigerians overstay their time? Are there cases where Nigerians They are, but it's not like we're the only ones. I'm not making a justification for it, and I don't want to be that guy that somebody else did something bad, and that's why I'm doing something bad. I don't want to be that guy. I'm not that guy, but I know prejudice when I see it, and I will stick to my guns on this one. I would. Okay, so you know, Nigerians have looked at so many ingenious ways to make sure that, look, we are relocating. Imagine you talked about Nigerians who will sell their property.
Yes.
Just because they're looking for greener pastures. Now, what is the implication of that? If the property is worth, let's just assume that the list is very small, insignificant amount of property, and you just can't wait, you do not have patience, you just want to get it off so you can get out. Let's just say 20 million naira, like you were talking about. 20 million naira. Okay, so you get the property out, 20 million naira. You want to go to somewhere, and you're going to look for a means of livelihood there.
Yeah.
You know that when you go, if by any means you are sent back to your country, you're going to sleep in the streets.
Yes.
Are you not going to look for a more ingenious, more clever way to stay over there? Yes, because the complaint is that you came here for studies, and all of a sudden you're seeking asylum. Why didn't you seek asylum from the first? Okay, so if he's going to seek asylum from the first instance, are you going to give? He's coming from Nigeria. Are you going to give to him?
So most families, what they do is the couples, the husband and the wife goes. maybe the wife is schooling, then the husband is
Working.
So while this wife is schooling, she's also looking for a job for sponsorship so that immediately her program ends, her place of work can say, okay, fine, this person, don't worry, we will sponsor
And they
you.
process the legal papers for that purpose.
Then the husband repeats that
Same
process,
cycle.
you know. But some people, what they do is they genuinely pay for tuition fees, and when they get there, they defer their admission and
They defer the admission and they stay there.
they stay there.
But you know what? The admission, I think it affords you a period of time for you to stay over in that country for the purpose of your education.
Yes.
So if it affords you that and you have deferred, it's not going to tell on that time frame, and that will
That's why they
give the
disappear.
authorities to.
So that's why they disappear. Okay, those are criminals.
So those are the people you
Those are the criminals.
are talking about.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
and those are the people that will sell their properties and go and find a way to borrow 20 million naira. Now, we have not even started talking about those who are going to school. That's paying your school fees is a different thing, but how much you need to provide for the authorities to see that, look, I'm able to pay for my fees subsequently.
Yeah.
I'm able to pay for my medical fee, my medical insurance, and all of that subsequently, and to equally fend for myself for this X number of years.
Yeah.
So I have some of them borrow that money, and they are going to pay interest back.
Of course.
to them. So it's quite an industry.
It's an industry.
And there are bankers that will provide you 9, 10, 15 million naira for you to present to the UK government that, look, I have this money. Whereas that money is not yours.
not
By the time
yours.
you start staying over there for 2 months, you pay back that money. You transfer the money back to the original owner of that money. Then you stay back and you start paying debt on two fronts. You're paying school fees, you are paying your creditors back in Lagos, Nigeria, or in Nigeria, any part of Nigeria. But yesterday, I saw a post in Twitter, and the UK authorities, they came out to say, look, we are not making laws to keep Nigerians away from our country. We have a long-standing relationship with Nigeria, and it is a responsibility of the UK government every year to review our our immigration laws and rules. And that's exactly what we are doing. And we are not reeling this out because we want to keep Nigerians away. So I see it as one of those activities by way of government policy the UK government will use to clean their stables there at home, not go with your direction to say it's
I want to
prejudice.
go in Moyo's direction, but this time around, I think they should, while they are also publishing what Moyo said, I think they should publish the crime rate, the number of countries
Yeah, I think so.
with the highest crime
There
rate.
needs to be a lot of
Let's
transparency for this.
put it out.
Put out
Let's
all the
know.
figures. Let's know where we're
I saw a video. I've seen a video of that, and I know the country that is stopping it. It's not Nigeria, but let them publish it.
Let's put
give
it
them
all
the
out.
benefit of the doubt.
Why these countries? What negativity are they bringing to your land? What is?
But you can't really blame them.
I can't
When you
blame
look
them.
at
It's their
Nigeria,
home. It's their home. I
it's
understand.
their home. But when you look at what is happening in Nigeria,
But-
also,
I understand that. But at the end of the day, you cannot just single out. You can't cherry pick statistics and put it on the table and think that nobody's going to challenge it. There has to be transparency in whatever you're doing. And another thing I would like to also know is that what is the implication of these tighter measures? Again, not that they will tell us that we should go and be bringing, we should pay an extra $100 for our visa fees,
probably
and
that's
they'll bring
what
another thing, red flagged countries exemption fee. You know, all this kind of little thing. That's how they do. And because they know Nigerians are desperate, they will look for this money. Some people sell their father's properties without their fathers knowing, and just to leave. I'm serious. They know we're desperate.
yeah, some people do it. They sell their father's properties
Okay.
while still living their
I'm aware of instances where, it's been quite a long time, where someone who is an athlete and is a budding athlete, he was going for screening in one of these European countries. There was no money to fund him. But luckily, coincidentally, that was the same time his 70 or elderly father collected his pension. So he talked his father into it. And you know that man, that young man, as an athlete, a footballer, and he's going for a screening in a foreign club. He has two things. You go, they don't pick you. you come back home, yourself and your family will starve.
Exactly.
But you go, you get picked, great. Because that money that is being used to send you abroad is your father's work and service for 35 years.
Yeah.
So you know what? He wasn't picked abroad. But you know one thing he did? He disappeared. He's going to go back to Nigeria the next day, and in the hotel where he slept, they woke up in the morning, and while they were preparing to leave, they came to his room. He was not there. So he got missing. In Europe, where there was good life for him. You know how can you starve in the midst of plenty? No. Okay, so I'm not using the Nigeria as but this one is different. So he went missing. Yeah. And, years later, he kept sending money back home. Where are you now? Oh, don't worry, I'm surviving out there.
That is brave. I don't know how people have the bravery.
Oh, I am aware of lots of those kind of stories because of my background and where I'm coming from. Well, my background and where I'm coming from as a journalist, so don't think otherwise. But this is where we draw the curtain in SOUQ Business Landscape today. We hope you had a good time watching and listening to some of our analysis here. My name is Oyinpreye Krumale, and my two gentlemen on the table are going to introduce themselves, and as we wrap up, say goodbye to you.
All right, I'm Adebiyi Moyosore. It's been lovely being on the show. Thank you so much, Priya.
Yes, thank you. And
it's been lovely staying with us. I am Olumide Sokoya. Enjoy the rest of your day.